So in this segment, I'm going to be discussing more issues around the private school situation. I did want to add, I did see an interesting point someone made, like private schools have increased their costs well above the rate of inflation. So for anyone to make the argument, oh, it's the Labour's VAT change that's causing the closure of private schools, not really 100% true, that one. Not even close to being that much true. There is some talk around the fact that private schools are going to be closing more, and there'll be more kids going to state schools. So that's the newer angle that they're going for here.
It's worthy aims, but the criticism of the policy is that it's going to be pushing more private school pupils into already overcrowded state schools. The Labour Party has made quite a meal of this. They've said that schools are overcrowded and that the quality of these schools need to rise. How on earth do you solve that problem by injecting what is predicted to be up to 40,000 private school pupils into state schools? Also, incidentally, the teaching unions aren't happy about it. The National Education Union has said that if this costs private school teachers their jobs, they will be angry, rightfully, with the Labour Party. So it's also a policy that might cost teachers their jobs. And, by the way, it's already closed down 2 independent schools.
As I've already said, there are schools that certainly have vacancies. There are my primary schools and my secondary schools have space, and they're very welcome. And they are good schools, and people should send their children there. I mean, it's fine, And if we have to, in the short term, have larger classes, we have larger classes.
This is one of the things that does concern me, because there are the school that I studied at. Under the Tories, because obviously my younger siblings went there, their class sizes ballooned to, I think, over 30, between 30 and 35. It does scare me short term how bad this policy could be. I do wish maybe Labour had put more money in to the schooling system in order to kind of push schooling this year, and then next year do the VAT rise. There's a lot of levers they could have pulled to do this. It's a bit concerning short term. Objectively, this is the right policy. I think the way they're going about it might be the problem, because again, it's going to impact these kids who, some of them would still be impacted from the shutdowns as well. And from that to go into overcrowded schools is not great, or further overcrowding at schools.
So you will make classes larger to accommodate.
The birth rate goes up and down.
Right. How big should classes be to accommodate this policy?
Oh, come on. What we need to do is we need to raise the money in order to make sure that children going to state schools have had breakfast. That's what our priority is, and we need to raise the money from somewhere. And what we're going to do is we are saying everything we're going to spend money on, we're saying where the money is coming from, because
they did the stupid fiscal rule thing.
We will have a properly costed manifesto, and all our spending commitments will be costed, and we will be able to say where it comes from. And sure, there may
dumbass fiscal rule strikes again.
May well be complaints about it. I understand that, but I'm afraid.
And obviously, the more kind of these private schools that close, or the less students that go there, the less money they're going to generate through this VAT change.
That if I have a choice between putting VAT on private schools and making sure that the children in my area can have breakfast before they start learning, I know where I am.
But it does sound as if you've got a choice between putting VAT on private schools and having larger class sizes. I mean, one of Tony Blair's pledges famously was to keep class sizes at 30. You're now saying that class sizes should be higher to accommodate your own policy. So how big should classes be? 35, 40?
There are classes that are larger, but I tell you...
she's kind of fear-mongering here, but the thing is, there are still schools with class sizes that are above 30, and I don't remember her talking about it. And you can always make the argument, well, you never talked about a specific issue, and suddenly you are now, therefore, it's the point I'm making is irrelevant. But this has been a long-running issue. Some of these have been long-running issues for probably around a decade now, and some of these people have been in the media space for a long time, and now it's suddenly fear-mongering and all this kind of stuff. When you weren't there when these policies were implemented, these budget cuts were being implemented. Now it's suddenly, will someone please think of the children?
It's worthy aims.
What's happened is that because of the underfunding of schools, the number of classroom assistants has gone. So it used to be that you would have a teacher within a school, but you'd also have a classroom assistant, and they've gone. You know, in private schools that I have visited, the classes are 8, 9, 10, you know, fantastic, and they only have one teacher. In state schools, they no longer have the number of classroom assistants that
teachers are expected to do a lot more work now as well, which is a big problem for them. A lot more kind of bureaucracy and a lot more support work.
They used to. That is a tragedy. We underfund our state system, and what we are doing is ensuring that we begin, as one of our first steps, is to make sure that we're putting more funding into the state sector. We're going to have more teachers. There's another 16,000 teachers coming. We're going to make sure that the
retention is the other problem as well. You know, ensuring teachers are paid enough and also they have enough support to carry on. That's going to be Labour's key problem to deal with, because there are a lot of teachers leaving the industry or going abroad to, you know, for better teaching opportunities, and I don't blame them, to be fair, for that.
Children are fed. You know, it's not. You know, it's not much to ask, and if it means putting VAT on private schools, I mean, the question is, right? No, it
is a bit weird they're pushing this kind of universal breakfast idea, but not doing the same for lunch. It doesn't really make sense.
And let me just say this. The question is it appropriate in these circumstances for, you know, for schools such as in Eton or Winchester or whatever to be seen as a charity, and that therefore they should not be paying VAT on the huge fees that are already charged? I mean, honestly,
the counter-argument to that, Ms. Thornbury, the counter-argument to that is it might be counterintuitive to be punishing the private sector and then end up punishing the state sector too, because it's so overcrowded it can't accommodate the extra pupils. We're fast running out of time. Quick yes/no answer.
Well, I mean, that's
I agree with Thornbury on the Eton point as well.
Point of view, I don't agree with you. You know,
we love agreeable disagreement on this.
I think this is going to be a short-term problem for Labour. I don't know if it's going to be one of those things that damages the polls or whatever, but it's going to be bad for the kids. I can tell you that much. It's going to be bad for kids' education. You know, the Times have been talking about it. Contingency plans are being drawn up in Whitehall for an influx in demand for state school places amid fears private schools will go bankrupt and close because of fee increases. You can see No Justice quite happy about that in terms of the private schools closing. I do wonder how much of an impact it's going to have. One of the other problems is just availability of schools and geography. You know, I don't know what areas these private school kids would live in, but if their private school closes and it's near their house, you know, their little nice rural house or in the suburbs, I had a private school near me. It's in the most random place. It will cause a bit of an issue for them getting to school. But you know, what some of these parents could do is, if they're so concerned about their kids, you know, losing their place in private school, they could just hire a tutor. I'm sure it'd be cheaper to get a tutor in like twice a week to help their kids rather than it is to pay for the fees in private school. I don't see why they couldn't do that, to be honest with you. And the last thing, you know, this is one of the other things that's pissing me off about this conversation, because they're talking about, you know, special educational needs that parents are sending their kids to private school because they have special educational needs. Surely the public, you know, like state schools should be able to deal with this. Okay, you'll have problems with like certain kids who are, you know, like take the piss out of people with special educational needs or whatever. But like, in my opinion, like, there should be a way state schools can deal properly with kids with special educational needs. Like, they should get funding for that. It shouldn't have to be the case that parents have to feel like they have to send their kids to private school.
Many of my families who are paying privately are really struggling to be able to afford to send their child to my school. And this is absolutely not about pleading poverty. This is the reality of the situation that the government has not considered. Children with special educational needs cannot just go to any school. They have been failed by the system repeatedly, and that's ultimately why they end up in an independent private school. These parents are desperate. These parents have tried the state sector, they've tried the school local to them, and they've seen the negative impact on their child. Therefore, they are having to make sacrifices themselves in order to send their child to a specialist school like mine. I have one parent who's a childminder, her husband is a firefighter. They both have second jobs. They're also on a huge bursary at my school. I have another parent who's a nurse and her husband's a mechanic. Again,
this situation should not exist. Absolutely should not exist.
Both have second jobs and grandparents are helping to pay the fees. These parents are desperate. They should never be in this situation, but unfortunately the offer for them for their child is simply not good enough, and they have to reach out to independent SEN schools like mine.
I wonder if there's some sort of exemption Labour could have made short term for kids that have special educational needs, in terms of like a VAT exemption short term, because at the end of the day, like, it should be the state schools that they should be equipped to deal with this. Like, it shouldn't be a situation where like the schools don't want to take on the students, or they don't have the facilities, when like that's what taxpayers' money should be going to ensure that all kids can get a good education from the state. Like, that's the reason why the system was built anyways, because businesses and the rich people needed well-educated people to go into the workforce. So why they started educating people's kids and stopped sending them up chimneys and things like that and working in the factories. They needed an educated workforce, and so it is kind of frustrating that this is the situation in the sixth or seventh richest economy in the world. Like, it's just such a dumb system. But that's because the Tories hollowed it out. Like, they did hollow out things like special educational needs at schools. The damage that they have done to the educational sector. I did cover this in a separate video, but the fact that someone like Gullis, who's a former teacher, went on to become an MP for the Conservative Party, the party has fundamentally hollowed out the teaching industry, or teaching sector, whatever you want to call it, in this country, is diabolical, because he's part of the party that did all of this damage to teachers. So many teachers left the industry, good teachers left the industry because of this geezer and his party's actions. But here he is getting sympathy on LBC, calling in about how he can't get a job. I hope you never fully get back into the teaching industry, mate. The kids can do a lot better than having a teacher like you. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.